Hi, everybody. I'm still trying to work out my microphone thing. So if anybody is listening, could you please let me know if you can hear me? Because I'm using this and I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. All the snafus of doing something new. Okay, I see there's some people here. Can you hear me okay? Or am I just like going like that? Do I need to do, signs? Yay! Okay, thank you. Hi, Becca. Hi, Eric. Thank you, Eric. I just needed to know that this was working. So, hello. I have been experiencing, like all we writers do, the infinite ask of what's your next book? And when am I going to get to read something else that you've written? And all of those lovely questions that we writers love. And so I'm not really going to talk about my first book except in how it relates to my next project. And if you want to know more, just look in my About section, click the links, go over to Amazon. When I was doing the Oat Project, my first book, which is a memoir about sowing your wild oats late, I had a lot of people say, oh my God, like you're a preacher's daughter and you're doing all these wild things and you should start a church. And I laughed because being a preacher's daughter, like I kind of quit church. I would never want to start a church. And I'm not starting a church, but since the book came out, I've had interest in a workbook. And my book is not a self-help book. Like let's just get very clear about that. It's a memoir about a journey that I took, 12 years ago. A very different person in ways back then. And if you've read it, I do feel very different from that time. But since it got published in 2016, I've had people say, hey, well, I've had an agent be really interested in a workbook. And I did not feel like an expert. And I did not feel like it merited that kind of spin or extra work. And by about 3 months after the book came out, I was at my doctor and for a checkup, and she really got real with me. And she said, you haven't dealt with your mom's death, and you haven't dealt with the stuff that came as a result, and I'd really like you to go to therapy. Now, what had been happening too is that I did this big thing that took me 10 years to finish, and it didn't solve my panic attacks. It didn't solve my depression. It didn't solve my anxiety. And I thought it would. Like, I really thought it would. If anybody has given it the good college try to try and figure out all of those things by writing a book, I did, And so I started going to the therapy like 2 years ago about. And when I walked in, I'm totally going to just tell you guys this story because it's really relevant. I walked in and I handed her my book. And I said, this is going to save us a lot of time if you just read this. So she did. And she came back 2 weeks later and she said, you talk about how this is about facing fear and becoming brave, but what I see is a story about self-judgment. And of course I was like, sorry for the audio. Oh my God, like it is about self-judgment. And I judged myself for 2 weeks because I hadn't seen that it was all about self-judgment, And so I've been working really hard to get at the root of my big, huge monster panic attacks and depression and anxiety and deal with grieving my mom's death and all the things underneath that. I will put a link somewhere about EMDR. If you don't know about that, I really recommend it. It has helped. It's been really hard work, but it's helped. And I'm finally ready to do the next thing. Now, I'm not doing this. This is a change for me, okay? I'm not doing this because I got a big idea and then I felt obligated to live up to the potential of that big idea and prove my worth by finishing it. Because that's what this whole book was. It was prove my worth by finishing it. Subconsciously, but really. And about a year ago, I was sitting in therapy and we were doing EMDR, which is, I'll give you a link. You're ornery. Stop it. I did not. So I'm being really serious. People, I love you guys. Even you. Even you ornery people. So, and I'm about to blush. So I was sitting in therapy and I was doing EMDR on something completely unrelated. And suddenly it was kind of like there was this bag sitting up against the wall. And inside the bag, and it was in my mind, but it felt really real. And inside the bag was the concept that life is worth itself. And I just sort of experienced it, and then I went on. I kind of ignored it and went on. And a couple of days later, I was sitting in here, actually in my living room, taking a break from writing, and I was watching a show that I don't remember which one. I was binging a show, and so I was eating lunch, and then I finished, and I kept watching the show for a while. And I have been kind of routinely hard on myself about taking breaks, or that TV is like, the ultimate indulgence, and so I don't watch it during the day. And so I could feel my body and my brain trying to get into this, how dare you take more time, and you're being lazy, and you need to get to work, and just self-flagellation, and, just really hard on myself. And it was like when the gears don't mesh anymore. It was like trying to start a car, or if anybody remembers defragging computers, right? It felt like something had happened and I couldn't be hard on myself anymore. And it felt very much like it wasn't trying, it wasn't work, it wasn't trying to improve. It was just for real. And I realized that whole concept of life is worth itself had changed me. And it has continued to sort of rewrite my software or hardware, really, over the last year to such an extent that I find it really hard. Like, New Year's just happened, and I didn't make any resolutions because I don't make goals anymore. I just decide what I want to do, and I make plans. And that's crazy, because in the past, I have said, I got a big idea. Amber Cote, I think, was the first person. She was like, you're like a popcorn popper. I can just see the ideas happening. But what would happen is I'd have a big idea, and then I would just hand the whip to you guys and say, I'm going to do this big thing. Could you make me do it? Even though I want to do it, but could you make me do it? Because I'm not worthy enough to just decide what I want to do and do it. I have to make it into something that has meaning outside of my own life. And that's what's really changed. If my life is worth itself, then how does that change what I do as art, or what I do as my profession, or how I am with my children, or how I am with you? And it's really fundamentally changed me. And as that has happened, I've been ready to kind of take on the idea of sort of like a workbook. I was speaking with a friend of mine, my dear friend Evelyn, and we were talking about the workbook idea, and I said, the Oat Project workbook, it's just so boring and sounds like work, and and I told her that Church of Wild story, and she was like, yes, that's it. Like, that's it. And I realized that my church, the Church of Wild, the main precept is life is worth itself, period. And if life is worth itself, then how does it impact everything I do? How does it impact how I try to change the world? How does it impact how I interact with people? It is changing it profoundly. And in order to go to do this workbook, I decided in the course of trying to learn all kinds of tech to make an audiobook, I have decided to sort of bridge these two projects by facing myself on camera, live. I'm actually kind of petrified. I'm about to cry. Because I've been hiding for a long time. And not hiding, just healing. So I'm ready to go to the next thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read my book. I'm going to face who I used to be on camera every night for about half an hour here, live, with you, I hope, until I read the whole thing. When I thought about doing this, I looked at it, and now, I look at it, and I know the pain that was involved in writing it and doing it and then finishing it, and I'm kind of awestruck by that I got it done, because damn was I in pain. Like, I was in so much pain and so much guilt and so much fear, and I hide it really well. So believe me, it was there. And I would really like to do this sort of with you. It is for myself, but I also hope that I've had people tell me, they said, well, you did that book, and so I went and did this. And I didn't plan on that. I just wanted to do a few things and share it, and I knew I needed to write it. But I honor that. And I want to face it one last time, kind of as the cornerstone of what I'm going to do with the Church of Wild. And that's kind of really gel-like. In my usual way, you who know me, I could lay out really huge plans for, conquering the world and getting on Oprah. If I ever do get on there will be a dance party, I promise. But I am starting a YouTube channel, and I'm going to upload the live videos to the YouTube channel. It's the Church of Wild YouTube channel. And this video will be on by tomorrow. But I'm going to upload the reading the book out loud so that people can kind of create their own audiobook. And then later I'll be working with a professional producer to create the actual audiobook, like the official audiobook. So, by the way, I need to give a shout out to Joe Carroll for this mascara that doesn't run when you cry. So that's the ta-da. I'm going to read this book out loud. I'm not exactly sure what the Church of Wild is going to end up being. I know it's going to be a YouTube channel. I know I'm going to write essays about how does life is worth itself change how we look at everything. And I call it, I use the abbreviation LIWI. So it's either Liwi like Kiwi or Liwi like Wi-Fi. So Liwi like, you can tell me, but I think of it as Liwi, being in the lee of the storm, and wee. So I'll make my case for that. So those videos will come after I'm done reading the book out loud every single night at 7:30 Mountain Time until it's done. I've told my kids, I've told my ex, I'll be here with you as though I were sitting next to your bed and just having a good old time. I will probably cry more. I don't know. I already have some compassion for who I used to be and the girl in the book, and I'm not gonna exactly all hail the wild. One thing, the theme of the book is that I hope to integrate the wild into our everyday lives instead of pushing it down or thinking of it as something unusual or thinking of it as something dark or wrong. This is all about integration and all those things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the description of the Church of Wild that's on the YouTube channel, and then I'm going to end this live video. And oh God, I kind of don't. Okay, you guys tell me. I can see some people joined. Do you want me to end the video and then restart another one and start reading? Or would you like me just to keep going? So you tell me while I'm reading this. So the Church of Wild seeks questions more than answers, is grounded in the belief that life is worth itself, and is inspired by wildness all over this wild world and in everyday life. By sharing this journey with you, we hope to catalyze better, more beautiful life. It did begin with my book, The Oat Project, How I Faced My Fear and Came of Age in One Wild Summer. But you're going to find me reading the book on here and on YouTube. So that's it. There's more, but we'll stop. So 1, 2, 3. Should I keep going? Or should I? Probably. All right. So here we are. I can feel my marketing people telling me. So I'm redesigning the cover of the book. It'll be done in probably a couple months. Facebook does not allow me to run ads because there's a naked body on the front. And there's nothing bad. It's just, it's there. So if you want this cover, go get it. So here we go. The Oat Project by Janae Jackson. I feel like we're at the library and this is story time. I hope you think it is. All right. Face your fears, or they will crawl over your back. The Oat Project by Janae Jackson. This is the sort of, I forget the word for it. All right, here we go. Just to interrupt, just to start, I'm not going to look at your comments for now while I'm reading. I would love to hang out with you on Facebook afterwards, but I'm just going to read. So let's see, what time is it? I'm going to read until 8:30 this time, okay? So thank you for joining me. It's like you're making me brave by showing up. So thank you. Next to war and tragedy, this story matters little. And yet it is one of waking to life, because each life matters, even those in danger of drowning in everyday luxuries. As surely as a bullet snuffs a life, so does lethargy and distraction, so does avoidance of risk, pain, and fear. Who are you to kill your life? As urgent as saving lives from poverty and war is the task to wake. We must wake to real life. We must face pain and joy. We must stop deifying risk avoidance. We must begin to revel in the leap off the cliff. My instinct, and perhaps yours, is to react as though death is the enemy of my life, when the true enemy is fear. This mosaic of a story tells of how I began to conquer fear. This mosaic of a story tells of how I began to conquer fear and really, finally, live. One last interruption. I will go back and read if I mess up, so that we can make that into an audiobook. Okay, so that was this. Prologue. The moms, the party, the projects. Waking. My youngest son was eating his evening meal at my breast. 1 year old, Leo looked up at me with eyes the same caramel brown as his father's. Will they be that color when he's an adult? I did the math. When he's 25, I'll be 62. My life, far beyond half over. Will I make it that long? How will I handle knowing death is soon? My heart raced, and tingling skittered up my arms, even as I basked in his beauty and the joy of feeding him. I had showered for a writers' meeting that night and stood in a towel in the bathroom, putting on a little makeup, glad the mirror showed only my face. The girl in the mirror was laden with extra pounds, reflecting guilt at my lack of discipline to exercise during pregnancy. Leo's 4-year-old brother, Percy, came in for a hug. He needed a lot of them, like me. I inwardly sighed, thinking he would make me late. Hi, little man, I said, smiling. His sweet face and stunning blue-gray eyes beamed up at me as he stroked the back of my thigh, my least favorite body part. Oh, mama, he pronounced it moma. You were so beautiful. My heart broke a little, wanting to graft him to my side for the rest of my life. He thinks of my thigh and me as beautiful. Will I know him as an adult? Will he be with me when I die? How old will I be? I wish I could keep him with me forever without knowing those, I wish I could keep him with me forever without knotting those apron strings. Okay, time out. I just realized that my computer's about to die. This is a grand experiment. Thank you for coming with me. Okay. So I'll read that last sentence again. Will he be with me when I die? How old will I be? Wish I could keep him with me forever without knotting those apron strings. Black edges encroached on my vision as I tried to find something to wear to the meeting. Death rode my back like a hair shirt, sharp prickles moving in waves through my arms, then to my feet and head. Finally dressed, I tried to focus on making it out the door, but couldn't breathe. Could feel the blood pumping through veins to my heart, dizzy, vision clouding as I could feel myself at 62 or 82, knowing the next breath would be my last, alone, petrified. I know I'll go to heaven. I should not be afraid. I should be confident. And guilt at my lack of faith amplified the fear. No matter how long I last, I will have to endure years more of this pain. I don't know if I can take it. But I have to take it for them. The weight of it smothered. Shouldn't you be leaving by now? Asked Jack, my husband. My hold on functional crumpled. And I fled to our room, slamming the door, flopping down on the bed, head buried in my arms, the darkness complete, crying and crying, knowing it would never end. I will never make it. I can't take it. I'm a horrible, selfish mother, and I pass these genes to my children. Not only will I die afraid and alone, they too will have to endure this pain. I can see panic developing in them already, the fear. I heard the door open, but refused to look. A small hand shook my arm. Mama, Mama! And instead of caring, all I felt was annoyed. Could Jack have not kept Sage, our 7-year-old, from bothering me for even 10 minutes? But I looked up with tear-swollen eyes. Yes, honey? She grinned, her whole body quivering, and I knew her glee should have made me feel better, but hopelessness gripped tight. Mama, I waked you. I blinked. I waked you, Mama. And somehow I could feel God, some God, life, someone, in her words as she said again, I waked you, Mama. In a flash, I knew her birth as the beginning of my life, knew how in every cell how the knew in every cell how the difficulties of being a mother had been as profound a change as waking from death to life. The panic lingered, but I began to breathe. The panic lingered, but I began to breathe. My vision cleared, clean, bright tears flowed, and I sat up, hugged her, and said, "Yes, Sage, you waked me." So I'll say the subhead for you. Losing it. This project started in a conversation with Kate. She catalyzed my writing career by inviting me to a workshop when we first met. Years later, we still talked often. One day, soon after my 37th birthday in October, I told her I had never been drunk. "What?" she said. She was Irish Catholic and told wild stories of her family, usually involving whiskey. "I've tasted wine," I said, "and I had a margarita once." "When, Janae?" This past year, actually." Why am I feeling defensive? "But you've never drunk so much you lost control of yourself?" "No. Losing control is wrong," I said. Fear sifted me, like panning for gold. "But if you never lose control, at least to the point of being uninhibited, you'll never know yourself," she said. "But that's just silly. I know myself," I said. I can't quite believe I'm actively disagreeing with her. She's my friend. "Do you know yourself?" she said. "So you're saying I should get drunk until I do who knows what?" Filigreed visions of illicit sex, dancing with strangers, and speaking boldly like my favorite movie and book characters sprang up in my mind. "No," she said, "that scares me too." She paused, seeming to consider her words carefully. "Back when I drank more, I never liked being falling down drunk, but I definitely liked being the really tipsy stage. Anxieties and real problems would drop away," she said. "I liked feeling chill and happy, able to cope with social situations easily." She took a drink of coffee and laughed. "It made me feel more in control, even though it did the opposite." "That actually sounds amazing," I said, thinking of my weekly panic attacks. What I wouldn't give for them to be gone. "All I'm saying is, until you know how you act with inhibitions down, you don't know your boundaries, or even your real self," she said. A kind of clanging shook me. "But, well, I think the world of you," I said, "but I don't agree." I had been told so often, explicitly and implicitly, that I was, quote, too much, too sensitive, too analytical. How much more would I be without control? "Again, I don't think you should get falling down drunk," she said, looking at my face. "But I would definitely advocate for drinking enough to be in that happy, relaxed place." I sipped my coffee, my brow furrowed as I considered her points. I trusted Kate and her views implicitly. Whole structures of judgment and assumption shuddered under her words, buildings in a hurricane. I had only had those couple of drinks because I'd convinced myself that moderation was not wrong. And she agreed, but seemed to be saying that going beyond moderation, at least once, was important enough to offset the risk. "The place between tipsy and drunk can be a fine line," she said. "You have to know your limits." I nodded. But how would I know my limits without blowing through them and falling flat on my face? Maybe literally. Way more than a party. The following spring, I was at a Russian Orthodox cafe with mothers from my children's school for Friday morning coffee group, and told these liberal, open-minded women about Kate's assertion. Matryoshka dolls and paintings of grizzled saints watched as we discussed diapers, kids, husbands, books, philosophy, and even sex. They laughed, delighted when I preemptively apologized for tailgating on the way to school. They seemed to like my intensity, not finding me to be too much. They agreed with Kate and exploded with questions. How had I arrived at 37 never having been drunk? Did I drink at all? Did I think it was wrong? I told them about being a preacher's daughter. No movies, dances, or alcohol. How being out of control was a root of sin. Though I said it wasn't necessary, as I had gotten tipsy on a glass of wine, they insisted I get drunk with them at a party they wanted to plan. Excuse me. I did not agree at all, but said yes. I was the mother of 3 and the wife of a terrific fellow. What happiness or self-knowledge do I lack? But considering their reactions widened cracks that had begun to appear in the life I had carefully cultivated to be okay with myself, to handle my panic attacks, and to manage my fear. At the next week's coffee group, while Leo toddled around our feet, my mom friends discussed the merits and disadvantages of rum, gin, vodka, beer, and wine. Someone said, No, don't drink tequila. Oh, God, that was the worst hangover. They debated how fast I should get drunk, and if it counted if I didn't throw up. I cringed inside as they decided it should be a bar crawl right down Tejon Avenue in public. I played along, acting delighted to be drinking in my hood of downtown, but I was petrified of looking like a fool. Then Ellery asked, What else have you not done, Janae? What do you mean? I said. Have you smoked weed? You mean like marijuana? Yes, she said, laughing. Marijuana. No, I said, horrified. It's a drug. They were all belly laughing now. This was a surprise. They laughed at drugs. Confused, I held off judgment of my new friends. Have you smoked a cigarette? Asked Erin. No, I have asthma. Yuck. I couldn't believe she would smoke. She seemed like a hippie, and I thought being healthy was a requirement. Skinny dipped? Asked Beryl. This body? Naked? In public? No. Though I had lost some weight from regularly walking, my pre-3 kids body was a distant memory. I tried to smile, but squirmed instead. Gone to a strip club? Seen titties, Janae? Asked Suzanne. They roared. No. Ever watched porn? Asked Sarah. No, I'm married. I mean, I have sex. That last part came out more like a question than a statement. I wondered if they had all watched those sorts of films when young, or even still did. A memory of naked girls dancing on a picnic table in a movie sneaked at my friend's house in junior high played in my mind as they snickered. Had role-play sex? I have to say that again because I messed it up. Had role-play sex? Asked Beryl. You mean like dressing up? My mind stopped in shock that this page boy, red-headed, fair-skinned mom was asking this. Yes, she said in her matter-of-fact voice, like schoolgirl versus Godzilla. I couldn't help but giggle with them. No, definitely not. My eyes widened. Wait, have you? She's Lutheran. Do normal people do this? Are Lutherans normal? As the scope of my inexperience grew, so did their incredulousness. My curiosity about drunkenness ballooned into wanting to have a few, quote, normal experiences. I thought most things they asked about were very wild, and if not wild, then at least spiritually dangerous. I may have stopped going to church, but I'm still the Christian I've always been. We started making a list of things I should have done already, that they wanted to do with me over the upcoming summer. They wanted to make an adventure to help me see what I'd missed and have fun. The list was long and varied. Little did I know that planning a simple party with fellow moms would lead to an entire summer of experimentation in conservative, Christian-soaked Colorado Springs. By the end of 14 weeks, I would see debauchery, vice, and completely naked bodies. I would even do things I'd been taught lead straight to hell, or misery, or both, including getting rip-roaring drunk. I was scared spitless. Fear, fear, and more fear. We're halfway done, 15 minutes to go. Thank you for joining me. You can see this whole thing on the YouTube channel probably by tomorrow. Links later. Fear, fear, and more fear. This story might sound ridiculous. You may have come of age in your 20s, pushed your boundaries and broken society's rules, fucked up enough to know your likes and dislikes. Getting drunk isn't a big deal, right? For me, it was. Raised as a preacher's daughter in a conservative Christian denomination, being out of control in any way was forbidden, avoided at all costs. Wild wasn't simply testing the bounds of propriety or law, it was sin, rebellion against God. I was to seek God's presence and perfect will with each breath, in every single moment. Though my parents weren't oppressively restrictive, our community was. Go out into the world and I might wreck my car while drunk or get a sexual disease or cancer from instantly addictive cigarettes. Worse, I'd harm my soul, potentially doomed to hell, separated from God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit for eternity. Thinking about wild things meant I was spiritually weak. Doing them was to flirt with hell itself. I wasn't yearning to reclaim my youth either. I had lived all over the US, married and had sex, in that order, had 3 children, friends, a community, and a burgeoning writing career. I had left the church 7 years before, but my everyday life had not changed. I no longer believed drinking was a sin, but getting drunk? Unthinkable. My husband didn't drink, and only a couple of times did I have a drink with friends. At its heart, life was great. But weekly panic attacks had plagued me for years. Triggered by fear of failure and death, in church or out, I was still afraid. I had walked the long church aisle to the altar at age 4 and asked God to save my soul. If he lived in me, why was I still afraid? Why had ditching church not helped either? What if all those years immersed in church, I had turned my back on real life by avoiding pain, risk, and darkness? And worse, what if I was training my children to live in fear? If the forbiddens that had guided me since I was born had become more a prison than a safety net, then it was time to test them. What better way than to get drunk? The Oat Council. I crafted a project, asking 12 friends, moms, and others to be my Oat Council. We would finalize and do the list together over the upcoming summer. They would tell me how to do each task and be a rich source of information and emotional assurance that I wouldn't die or go to hell. I'd never had many female friends, and I looked forward to sheer fun. Watching my pastor's wife mother navigate the churning waters of female relationships in church, a target, often ignored, sometimes loved, cemented in me her wariness of women in groups. Finding these ladies felt both risky and like discovering a long-lost tribe. Every email, every conversation about what we would do left me roiling and scared, but I had to follow through on my promise to them. Their beliefs ranged from freethinker atheist to born again. My former church girl self would have insisted I rely solely upon Christian friends for spiritual guidance through this risky plan, but I knew I needed input from all types. But why? I hit a snag. Why don't I feel a moral check? I had properly ignored the secular world all my life, and now I was about to immerse myself in the hellbound world from which I was supposed to flee. What has happened to me, to my faith? With no answers, I kept going. We kicked off with lunch at my favorite Indian restaurant. Of the 12, only 4, Suzanne, Erin, Diana, and Stella, showed up. Some of the rest didn't even respond to my email, and a couple said they would come, but never arrived. I chalked up the no-shows to end of school, beginning of summer, busyness, and pulled out the list of 42 options. I asked, what should and should not be on the list? What should or should not be on the list? Should tasks be divided into young and older? How should I do them? One of each type per week? Any specific order? Are there any I should do on my own? And which ones would you like to do with me? The conversation went like this. So, what kind of gay bar are you going to? Asked Stella. There are different kinds? I asked. Stella doubled over, laughing. Yes, Janae. She's a lesbian, the only one I knew, a college senior, and my kid's babysitter. Like what? I asked. There are bars for gay men, lesbian bars, bars for both, all kinds, said Erin. So which should I go to? This is becoming complicated already. They disagreed. A lesbian bar. All of them. Diana, the one Christian friend who had shown up, sat next to me. She hadn't said a word yet. Will there be dancing? I asked. Please let there be dancing. Sometimes, but definitely drinking. Will I get hit on? I asked. If you want to be. Stella smirked as she said this. Do I want to be? Do you think I have to get hit on to really immerse? Only if you want to get hit on. Don't do it for just the book. Stella said, should I try to kiss a girl? No, that should not be for the book, Stella said to my surprise. You should kiss a girl. You should kiss anyone because you want to kiss them, not for a project. You don't have shoplifting on here, Janae, Suzanne said, like she caught me. I've actually already done that, I said, cocking my eyebrow at her. Really? Glee lit up their faces. When? What did you do? I was 4, and their laughter rang throughout the restaurant. That doesn't count. Please, Janae. No, I said. Hear me out. Suzanne crossed her arms, smiling and shaking her head. I was 4 when Bubble Yum Gum came out. I wanted some, but we were preacher poor. In the hardware section of a store, I saw a pack sitting on a shelf next to a shovel. I put it in my pocket. When we got to the car, I sat in the back seats, bent over, and put the pack of gum on the floor under the driver's seats. When we were a little over halfway home, I pretended to drop a pin, bent over to pick it up, and cried, "Oh, look what I found," holding up the gum. My mom said, "Just be sure to share it with your brother." He wasn't older than 2. Okay, I said. So I got my gum. I didn't tell them I had stolen it until I was 14 and we'd moved 3 times to 3 different states. Suzanne was open-mouthed. She had a 4-year-old too. You know, she said, I think that actually counts. They all nodded with her, grinning. I clinked water glasses with her. I told you, I said, feeling proud of early sin. You were so devious, Janae, Erin said, looking at my face as though reassessing me. Yeah, I said. They didn't want to cut anything on the list. I could see this project stretching into years. I think you should take your worst fear and face it, said Erin. Like you fear death, so you should jump out of an airplane. But that's not the point. I said, it's to sow wild oats, not to face fear. She got it long before I did. I'm going to interrupt just for a second, and I have one footnote in the book, and it's right here. She got it long before I did is in parentheses. From here on out, I shall use parentheses for comments from now, 9 years after that summer, with 9 years of loss, love, and life experience under my belt. Let's call it the parenthetical now. I'll need to figure out a way to indicate parentheses, but I'll just show you when they're there. We settled on a twofold approach. Half the things they wanted me to do were common wildnesses between ages 15 and 25. The other half were things they considered exotic or deserved luxuries by most American women. I had to face each task on its own, no combining, like getting drunk for courage. After heated discussion and debate, the Oat list was final. We have 4 minutes. So I'll read Fallout. At some point in the meeting, someone mentioned the Christian organization Diana's husband worked for. Erin, on my right, clicked her tongue in disdain and said, "Oh, please." On my left, I could feel Diana bristle. Though she was one of the most open-minded Christians I knew, and though Erin probably would have been appalled at their effects, to Diana, Erin's words felt like an attack. Decades-long political conflict had exacerbated friction between Christians and non-Christians in our city. And here it showed up at my table with my friends. Those 5 seconds cost me another friend who wasn't even there. After the meeting, I emailed everyone the final list, describing our meeting and plan. Erin emailed back, quote, 12 friends, 12 items in each category, 12 weeks, 12 disciples, 12 in a dozen, 12 hours on a clock, 12 nights. Looks like you've got a magic number. Can we get tattoos together? I have 2 and have been considering another. Westside Tattoo has the best guys in the cleanest place. Diana emailed too. Wow, you're going to be busy. I don't know where I fit on the list or if you have ideas of what you'd like to do with me. I'm not huge on bars and clubbing. I was only comfortable doing it when younger if I drank enough. Could you let me know if there's anything in particular you want me to do with you? Don't feel obligated to include me if you don't need me. You are the best judge of who you are comfortable with. Her last 2 sentences confused me. I wondered why she would think I would feel obligated when I had already asked her to be a part of it, trusting our friendship. I should have recognized warning bells, but I didn't. Would you guys like me to keep going until the end of the chapter just for this first one? Anybody? Is anybody still with me? Okay. I'm going to keep going. It's almost done. The Christians object. Diana emailed again, copying the letter to the other Oat Council Christians, begging me to drop the project, expressing deep reservations. I responded to only her because I thought it should be between us. I worked hard to communicate my plan and perspective better, hoping to allay her doubts. After respectfully, affectionately discussing it, we remained friends, and she was supportive, planning to lift me to God in regular, protective prayer, for which I was grateful. The next day, hi everybody, by the way. I'm going to interrupt for a second because it's really hard reading this. It was an intense summer. I'm glad it was 2007 and not this summer. Okay. The next day, I got an email from the husband of one friend who wasn't at the first meeting. Quote, "Hi, Janae. I hope it's okay that my wife let me in on the Oat Project. She told me about your idea last week, and the more I thought of it, the more it bothered me. Now, let me be clear. I am speaking for me, not my wife. And let me be the first, it sounds like, to ask you, what the hell are you doing? Okay, that is said in jest, or 51% in jest. But 49% is wondering why you would want to be like so many other people, and how many of those people who have done the things on your list have no regrets doing them. Unquote. 3 days later, a printed out letter from his wife came in the mail. We had been friends for almost 10 years. Over 2 pages, she ranted, sarcastically berating me for thinking I could remain a Christian and do the project. It was so full of assumptions of my intentions and motivations that I let loose with all guns in an 8-page response. I have to interrupt myself. I'm not going to skip ahead very often in this, but I just want you to know that she's a really wonderful person, and she's apologized since then for this letter, and I love and appreciate her. And but this is part of the story because it happened. So there we go. So I let loose with all guns in an 8-page response. I didn't hear from her again. I didn't want to. Her words and attitude shocked and hurt me. This was a silly project, but she took it seriously, and she chose belief over our friendship. Will I lose more friends? And this is a parenthesis. She found me on Facebook 3 years later, sincerely apologizing. It took me almost a year to forgive her and write back. Just the other day, we ran into each other. I saw change in her face, a new openness, and she confirmed it. I looked forward to catching up. Real relationship over years. That's what it is. End parentheses. I wanted to think well of my Christian friends, but perhaps I'd overestimated their ability to be around non-Christians. Why don't I bristle when people hate Christianity? As a pastor's kid, I saw the often very un-Christian underbelly of the church. People being human, though I was taught it was sinful flaws. I had never had a problem with, quote, Christian haters because their point was clear. I had left the church 7 years before because of its self-righteous, judgmental foundations and habits. Hypocrisy is a survival mechanism of belief. Journal. An aside, these journal entries are directly from my journal. They're edited like as lightly as I could possibly edit them, simply for clarity. And yeah, I still have all the notebooks. So, journal. Are there really 2 sides of wild? Immature and mature? Do women try to find the wild in other ways after they become older or respectable? Is it legit, socially and personally, for them to shun wild oats assigned to immature attitudes? Or is it a societal construct based on the restriction of women? Or is it because we are just afraid to risk? The best friend. I called my best friend from college, assuming she would jump at the chance to join me. She lived close by and had gone more of a wild route when younger. We'd been through depression, mine and hers, dating, marriage, mine and hers, divorce, hers, children, mine, surgery, hers, and the normal vicissitudes of a long-term friendship. I figured she would welcome, advise, and join me on the journey, glad for me to finally wise up. I called her while pacing outside a deli in the warm spring air. Hi! Hi, Janae! I was surprised she picked up. We usually played phone tag for days. She talked for a while, and I told her about the project. She laughed, though her tone twanged oddly. Why are you doing all this? I want to know how it feels, exactly what these things are like. It's not the same as hearing it from someone else, I said. That's true, I guess, she said. She asked more about why and said, what else are you thinking of doing? Her discomfort confused me, but I laughed again. I'm thinking of kissing a girl, actually. Oh, yeah, okay, she said. Dial tone. What the hell? I called her back. She didn't answer, and I left a message. I don't know what I've said to upset you, but I'd like to talk about it. I was really hoping for your advice and support. I just don't understand. And my voice faded, and I hung up. She never called me back. This project had already cost me 3 friends. I was conflicted, petrified, and sad at the loss, indignant at their attitudes and assumptions. I was beginning to discover a determination inside of me I'd never imagined. Parentheses. It took me a couple of years to call on my friend again. She apologized, explaining that she'd been going through problems with her now ex, that back then she avoided conflict and had felt sorry for Jack. After hearing how my life had gone since then, she understood. And though we reconciled, it was never the same. We haven't talked in years. The grilling. That April, in the midst of scheduling tasks, I attended Pikes Peak Writers Conference. I had pitched my... Sorry, I need to restart. Hi, everybody who was there that year. Crazy feeling. I had pitched my children's fiction to agents and editors for years, getting nibbles, but no bites. I felt reckless, ready to squander all the golden opportunities. Why not pitch this silly project as a book? Saturday night, after the banquet and keynote speech by psychotherapist author Dr. Eric Maisel, staff and long-timers sat with him, lounging in the bar on couches. The usual question arose. What are you writing? I'm going to do some of the wild, oatish things most Americans do when they're young, recording how it goes, I said. I smiled, hitching my strapless dress up, my still nursing a baby boobs, making it slide right back down, cocked my head in my customary please enlighten me way, and waited for them to laugh. But they didn't laugh. Instead, they grilled me for almost 4 intense hours. What else is on the list? What does your husband think of this? Is this a way you've constructed to have an affair because you're secretly unhappy? Why haven't you done these things before? I don't know if I believe that she hasn't. I had barely drunk my margarita, but my away from children giddiness dissipated in their seriousness and concern. I thought they'd find it funny. But even Dr. Maisel, creativity guru and a kind, sophisticated man, was shocked. His reaction unnerved me. They debated it among themselves. I watched, amazed at their passion. They discussed what they would do in my place. They questioned my motives. They said they wanted me to shed fear, and they looked forward to reading it, but they were scared for me. Until now, I had blown it off when someone said doing those trivial things would change me. But the reaction of these people gave me pause. I respected them and tried to convince them of my personal integrity, that I was telling the truth and that I hadn't done the things I said I hadn't done. I imagine those with no experience in the American evangelical church might find it difficult to believe me, but I wasn't that unusual, though it certainly felt like it. My level of inexperience was at least close to normal for girls raised in a conservative church. Perhaps I was more clueless than the average, but not for the 80s. At least, I didn't think so. I had still been debating doing the project even while planning it. The fear of what might happen had started merging with my weekly panic attacks, infesting my dreams as I wondered if I was a good mother, friend, and wife by going ahead with it. But these people were having this amazing conversation about life, the wild, humanity, and love, all because I perhaps was going to maybe dare to probably do this thing. I walked up to my hotel room at about 3 a.m., shaken. I don't know why this part gets me. For months, I had felt increasingly worthless as a writer, like I wrote fluff, that my children's books hadn't been published because my words simply didn't matter. I washed my face, looked myself in the eyes, and started crying, still puzzled over their intense reactions to this silly idea. It felt as though God was there, saying, "See, this is important. You have something to do, and something eventually to say." I took a deep breath and smiled at my reflection. Okay then. We're 2 pages from the end of this chapter, and thank you for joining me. I'm seeing a lot of people I don't normally get to say hi to on Facebook. So, hi, cousin. The husband. Jack and I talked about it. So, are you okay with my spending a lot of time on this? I'm probably going to have to be gone many nights, I said. Well, we've done it before, he said. What do you mean? When you went back to school 2 years ago. You were gone most nights to study, he said, shrugging. And we made it fine then. I scanned his face for suppressed resentment, but couldn't read it, though he looked calm. Excuse me. Told you I would cry. Though he looked calm. That's right, I said. I had forgotten. I'm going to say that again since we're making an audiobook out of this. That's right, I said. I'd forgotten. I spent the spring semester of 2004 finishing my BA in political science, 13 years after graduating. Receiving that diploma made those overwhelming 5 months entirely worth it. Will this be worth it? So, he said, we can do this. Are you sure? Yes, he said. It's important for you, right? Yes, but why do you think so? I asked, uncertain of how he saw it. Because you need to face things, find out what you don't know, for your writing. Can we afford it? I asked. He was self-employed. Make a list of what you're going to do, how much it will cost, and a schedule. We'll plan for it, he said. I have plenty of work. I didn't know why I was okay taking on a huge project when our youngest was only a year old and still breastfeeding. I wasn't ready that soon with our older two. I looked at my husband, thankful for his support and attitude, and a thought occurred to me. Hey, I know you said you were willing to do the sex stuff on the list, but would you want to do more than that with me? We could have a lot of fun together. No, Janae, he said, laughing. You're on your own with the rest. I could not insist, didn't want to bring up the fault lines of our marriage, simply happy he was okay with any of it. Something inside me clamored for change, to push things. I didn't know what it was, or where it came from, or why, but it was deafening. Completely clueless, but not crazy. Between planning and starting, friends' words kicked around me inside like a bell. I'm going to say that again. Between planning and starting, friends' words kicked around inside me like a bell. Don't go near what might lead to sin. That's just stupid. You don't know what you're messing with. And why are you risking your nice life? I'd known my upbringing was founded on fear, but I was beginning to see how it wasn't only doctrinal, but also primal. And it ruled me. Fear of failure. Fear of losing love, fear of hell, fear of death, fear of risk, so deeply embedded in my psyche that I had been blind to it until now. My father had said I had a rebellious spirit for disagreeing with him. Not for getting drunk, smoking, or dancing, which I never did. Why did I never rebel? Did I think doing a few silly, wildish things would make me fearless, cure my panic, and fix my marriage? Of course not. But I had to do something. My conscious goal was to experience trivial fun with friends, to have fun. In the process, maybe I would get a clue about life outside the walls of my heretofore unchallenged beliefs, learn what people were talking about when they spoke of weed, hangovers, nakedness. I was sick of being the girl who never got the joke, whom everyone laughed at after laughing at the joke. I just want to know. I was blown away by the scope of what my friends considered normal life, and I could feel unsown seeds sprouting, pushing up, seeking sun and rain. Journal. May 2007, the week before beginning. I have an inkling that instead of bringing me into the shared experience of most Americans, I'll still be outside it. Even after doing all of this. Why? Because I'm doing it at 37 instead of 20. Perhaps even if I had been wild then, I would have analyzed instead of acting. I'm built that way, to wrap meaning and context around every moment. I preach, I teach. I think I'm going to have a much harder time letting go than standing apart. The worst first. In the few months between planning and starting, I had lost 3 friends and felt overwhelmed with the enormity of attempting 25 new tasks in one summer. And then, because of scheduling, this crazy idea that turned into a plan that I seemed to be actually doing had to begin with smoking marijuana, a drug. So that's the end of the prologue, and I just read way longer than I planned. It will average between around 30 minutes from here on out, and I'm going to continue this story with chapter 1 tomorrow night at 7:30 Mountain Time, and chapter 1 is the college student, Mary Jane, and me. I can't quite believe that I've actually done this, but I'm going to keep doing it. And if you are coming in at the end and not the beginning, well, you can watch it again when it posts. But I'm going to be reading my book out loud here, live on Facebook, until it's done. Facing the old me as kind of the me that I really like now. I'm going to be reading about me who didn't like herself. So it's pretty intense. And it is for you. I hope you take... I have no idea where your encouragement is going to come, unless it's like, oh my God, thank God I'm not like that. I mean, really. But I hope that you can find some to maybe be brave or take a risk or break a rule, but really to know that your life is worth itself, quite apart from your performance or production or potential or anything. And you're going to be hearing me say that way like all the time, but this is first, facing what started it all. And so thank you. I'm going to go now. And I will see you tomorrow night at 7:30 Mountain Time here. And I will post links in the comments below this, so that you can eventually follow along on the Church of Wild YouTube channel, and we can see what happens. So hugs, love you, and I'm going to go drink some hot chocolate. And hi.